Good morning. Thank you all. It's so much fun to be here. Are you awake? All right, I am too. I'm here to talk with you a little bit about the power of the plus and what it means to make the most of women in Texas by building their economic security. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the facts that we discovered in a report that we developed called The Economic Issues Facing Women in Texas. And this report was published by our subsidiary, if you will, our research and advocacy arm that's called Texas Women's Foundation. And we published the economic issues study as a way of looking at all those issues that impact women in Texas, because for years we have done, as Dallas Women's Foundation, had done research on the different issues that impact women. So that might have been education, it might have been leadership, health, safety, economic security. And we had looked at those kind of independently. Well, the problem with looking at them independently is when you go to speak to a legislator or a public official or even your neighbor, they go, oh, that's a women's issue. And we said, no, maybe we need to look at it overall as women's economic security impacts each of those areas and issues. Let's look at the broader picture. So we did this study this spring and also did 9 area studies of 9 metro areas in the state. So we've got the statewide piece and then a look at the metro areas of Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Amarillo, Tyler, I have to count them, Houston, San Antonio, and McAllen. So we ended up with a real strong look at the state overall. And what I'm going to talk to you today about are those particular issues that impact a woman's ability to thrive in the Texas economy based on what's important to her family budget. So the very building blocks of a family budget, the things that are important for a woman to be able to thrive in Texas. You'll find there are some challenges, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do to help address those challenges. So let me say first of all, who is this Texas woman? Well, today she is under the age of 35. She's a woman of color, and she lives in a big city. Of course, Texas is home to 3 of the largest cities of the country and 5 of the top fastest growing cities in the country. So cities are very much an engine of the Texas economy. Our economy is very diverse as well. So 17% of the women in Texas were not only not born in Texas, they were not born in the United States. 45% of our population is non-Hispanic white women, 37% Latina, 12% African American, and 5% Asian. So a very diverse population of women. And again, we are on the young side as well. But with this high-powered Texas economy we live in, and all of the engines of that economy in these various cities, 1 in 5 Texas women live in poverty. And of course, it will not surprise you that women live in poverty more frequently than men. In fact, you can see that single women with a child are twice as likely to live in poverty as their male counterparts. And living in poverty in the state of Texas is defined, the line is defined at 1 woman, 1 child, $15,504 a year. Shocking number, $15,504 a year. So if that's the cutoff, you know that there are women at $16,000, $17,000, and $18,000 and $19,000 a year with a child or 2 that are not thriving and not hardly surviving. When we look at the state overall, 30% of all households in the state of Texas are female-headed. So only less than a third of all households are female-headed. But when you look at all households in poverty, 53% are female-headed. So what we know is that here, like everywhere in the world, I don't care if you're in Africa, South America, Afghanistan, or in our backyard, women wear the face of poverty. And part of that is the wage gap. There are 3 things you need to know about the wage gap in Texas. And the first is that women occupy the low-paying jobs. 63% of all minimum wage workers in the state are female. The second thing you need to know is that the wage gap pertains whether you're at the high end or the low end. So at the low end, men earn $1, women earn 85 cents. On the high end, like engineers, women earn 84 cents to the guy's dollar. So again, the wage gap does impact our economic stability. And why does that matter? It matters because now women's incomes are increasingly more important to the family. How many of us, live in a family where there's a single wage earner? Many of those are women. How many of us live where there are two wage earners? Because pretty much that's what it takes. And so today it is much more important to look at the impact of a woman's income on the status of the family than ever before. When we did this study, we looked at the 4 building blocks that make up economic security. So kind of from your family basis, education is one of them, child care is the next, health insurance, access to health insurance is the third, and housing is the fourth. And we looked at those across the state, and we drilled down to those in each of the economic areas. And what we discovered is that education, which is the basic building block, pays, but it just doesn't pay as well for women as it does for men in Texas. So if you look at the fact that a woman with an associate's degree or some college is still not earning what a man with a high school diploma is earning in the state, you'll see where that wage gap really does show up. So the other critical thing for women is childcare. And now whether you are in your career and have children, or whether you're in education and gaining your education and have children, sometime sooner or later you might need childcare. And in the state of Texas, childcare for one child on average costs $5,000 a year. So let's go back to, what does an average woman with one child make in the state of Texas? She makes $24,000 a year. So childcare can be as much as, for one child, can be as much as 22% of her income, which is a very large number. The next thing that women are challenged by is the availability of health insurance. Now this was done, our study was done before the Affordable Care Act, so we do not know what these numbers will look like the next time we do this study. But for now, what you'll see is that there's a disproportionate hump in the middle of this chart, and that is that we're doing well with young children through federal programs, we're doing well with older women through federal programs, Medicare, but it's the women in the middle that are at risk. And unfortunately, the largest number of women at risk are those in the 18 to 34 age, when you are most likely to have a baby. And so, of course, that's the age when health care is of paramount importance for your own health and also prenatal care for a child. So these are affecting the women's economic stability in ways that we perceive now, and in ways that also impact her family. One of the things that also is a building block that we have to watch for women is the amount of money they spend on housing. And so if you look again, once again, disproportionately, single moms are paying the largest disproportionate share of their income for housing. And what that means is 30% or more of their income is going to housing. So affordable housing is an important component of stability. It's an important component of family stability. If you have a stable, affordable home that you can stay in, it has wonderful effects on your children's health and education and the health of the family. And it's been proven study after study that when you have to move around a lot, there are both negative consequences to health as well as to education. So these are the challenges that our Texas women face. Now, I'd like to bring it home a little closer and look at what it looks like to live in the Dallas metro area. So again, what does it look like to be a woman in the Dallas area? Much like the statewide study showed, 30% of all households in the Dallas area are female-headed, but 53% of all the households in poverty are female-headed. And we looked at that number and we said, so what does it really take? I mean, these numbers like $15,500 are clearly not going to make it in Dallas. That's going to be a challenge for a woman in poverty. $24,000 is on average what a woman makes in the state of Texas, a single woman with one child. So is that $24,000 enough for her to make it in the Dallas metro area, for her to buy food, for her to have all the basic needs covered, for her to have housing, and for her to have childcare for that one kid? Well, at $24,000, do the simple math. You know, you got 30% going to housing, you got 22% going to childcare. That leaves 48% of a $24,000 salary to cover all the rest of those basic needs. That'll be a stretch. But we didn't know how much of a stretch. Do you know what it takes to live for one woman and one child to live in Dallas, pay their rent, have transportation, take care of basic needs, and have a little money to put aside? $44,496. $44,496. So the delta between that is huge of what average women are making. And 70% of our jobs in this community don't pay what it takes for one woman with one child to thrive. So we looked at that and said there's got to be something we can do about this, because if also our healthcare access is also limited in the community. We've got 457,000 women and girls with no health insurance in the Dallas metro area. And we also have 61% of our single moms paying big numbers for their housing. Again, the housing costs are a challenge. So we looked at all of that and said, what can we do about this? And what we realize we can do about this are some very specific things that I'm going to ask you to consider doing today. And the first one is I'd like you to learn about the facts. Our website is www.dallaswomensfdn.org. And the statewide study as well as the metro area studies are all available on the website, which of course should be on the slide, and it isn't, but we won't talk about that. And so www.dallaswomensfdn.org. We can learn these facts because, see, we didn't really know them ourselves. And the tragedy of that is we've been studying each of these issues almost in a silo, instead of looking at the impact of the whole to women and girls in our community. And when it impacts women and girls, there is a ripple effect that impacts the entire community. And that's what we want to make positive instead of make negative. So the first thing is to learn, and the second thing is to share. All of us have the ability to take this information and share it. Now let me tell you a sad story, is that Texas ranks 44th in the nation for how often we talk about issues with our family and friends. So we talk about The Biggest Loser, we talk about the Kardashians, we talk about all the, stuff in the magazines. We do not talk about issues. 44th? I mean, that's pathetic. So what we've got to do is really take ownership of the issues and put our voice behind them. And that could be at your house, that could be at your church, that could be here at school, that could be anywhere. But to bring those issues forward, because very few of us are talking about them. And when we do talk about them, then we can get braver about talking about them to people that have power, because we have power too. And so whether we raise our voice in church, we raise our voice at school, or we go visit our representative and say, did you know that this is what women and their families face in your state, in your community, in your backyard? We can raise our voices and we can share the information. We can take action, and that's the other piece I want us to think about. Oftentimes you go, God, there's so much bad news. How can I fix it? Well, we can fix it, every one of us, in our own ways. One of them is, if you have a job, going to your employer and saying, did you know that research supports the fact that when you pay a living wage and you have family-friendly policies, you have less turnover, you have more satisfied employees, and ultimately you have more satisfied customers. It's good for business. Or maybe you are a part of a group of businesses or a group of organizations that say, we're going to form a coalition and we are going to commit that all of us together are going to adopt family-friendly policies. And when people come at us, we're going to stand together and say, this is the right thing to do, not just for the people here, but for the people to come. Because when Texas allows all of its citizens to prosper, we all get better, we all prosper. So we truly can act. Whatever our sphere is, we can act within it. And we can also, guess what, vote. And so when the opportunity arises, know who the candidates are, who are family-friendly, who want to see that Texas women thrive. And if you can find those candidates and raise your vote, you are taking an action that can have implications not just today, but tomorrow and for all the tomorrows to come. Our organization was founded on the basis of a belief that when you invest in a woman, it creates a ripple effect that extends from her to her family, to her community, and ultimately to our world. And guess what? We're not the only ones who think that. The World Bank, the United Nations, and every president and first lady since President Carter have made deliberate strategic investments in women across the world because that was how change could be most effectively made. So I invite all of you to embrace your ability to invest and take action to create that ripple effect, because I guarantee you, with strong Texas women, we've got a better Texas, and we've got a better world. Thank you.